Hey y'all, how's it going? This is Octavian coming at you from New York City, and I think that's something that a lot of New World players, especially the new ones, are really looking for, and something that I've seen, people kind of putting comments out in the community is just how do you think about basic strategies when you're going into PvP situations, whether that be in war scenarios with the 50 on 50 combat, whether that be in outpost rush or duels. How do you think about all these things? And I think that just kind of gave me an idea for just analyzing, kind of similar to how a lot of sports analysis goes, where we kind of go back through game tape and kind of look at what strategies work the best and what kind of makes the basic framework for whether that be good offense or good defense. And that's really kind of the impetus for this channel and for today's video, which is the fundamentals of making a good offense. So let's get into that. In most sports, there's usually one person that's kind of coordinating the strategy that a team is using in a certain scenario. In some cases, that person's a head coach. In some cases, that person's a coordinator, whether that be on the offensive or defensive side of the game. And in New World, the community has kind of chosen to use the term Shotcaller. And I'll be using that term here going forward as well. As a shot caller on offense, there are a few key frameworks you should keep in mind when coming up with the strategy for a 50 on 50 scenario. Let's go through those so you can maximize your chances of success when attacking a settlement. Something to keep in mind, not only when you're coming up with a plan for your attack, but executing on that plan and choosing what moves to make during the attack itself, is knowing your personnel. This concept has a few important components to it. The first part of this is knowing the skill levels of your players and their strengths and weaknesses. There are way too many shot callers out there who are dealing with random players, people they don't know, and this leads to problems. As a shot caller, your number one job is to put your players in a position to succeed, and that's only going to happen if you give them tasks that they're good at. And you've got to know what tasks those are. That might not have to be for each individual player, it might just be for each team. Depends on how you've kind of broken up your army. But make sure that you're putting the right people on the right tasks in the right position. The second part of this is ensuring that you understand the builds and composition of the equipment or the skills that your players are using. You really don't want to be sending squishy DPS into a situation where they're just going to get melted and don't have support from tanks or from CC that can help them. Make sure you understand who's using what equipment, who's built in a certain way, and use that accordingly. Next, we're going to talk about putting defenders into conflict. This is just so important for a shot caller on offense because it's the key way in which you create a scenario where the defensive shot caller or individual players and teams that are trying to protect their settlement from you are really going to be forced to make tough decisions and eventually make mistakes that give you competitive advantage. There are some pretty basic strategies you can follow to implement this as part of your game plan on offense that we'll go through in a bit, but even the most advanced strategies really kind of boil down to this concept. The next thing we're going to talk about is spacing and timing. Spacing really is so important because of the fact that the current meta of New World has defenders, even more so than attackers, employing AoE attacks and overlaying these attacks in order to take out as many attackers as possible. And while this also happens on the offensive side, of course, but on the defensive side, this has really just become a way to control choke points, take out attackers on flags, and really is a key part of defensive strategy. By making sure that your company and your entire army, should you also have allies in it, is keeping space between themselves or spacing appropriately when they're not doing something like capturing the flag and they're forced to stand in a confined environment, you can ensure that those AoE attacks minimize their effectiveness. We'll kind of see that in an example here going forward. Timing really becomes important because of the fact that there are certainly certain points in the battle that are more favorable for initiating an attack or a capture of a point than others. There are also certain times when it's much more favorable to employ certain strategies or certain moves that are subcomponents of those strategies. And we'll kind of talk through that as well in this example. Last thing we're going to talk about are cheat codes. And no, this isn't me advocating for actual cheating in the game. I would never do that, and that is very bad. Don't do it. But if you've ever heard anybody comment on a football game, basketball game, soccer match, what have you, you'll hear coaches talk about something called cheat codes. And effectively what they mean is just best practices that plug and play into any team strategy. On offense in New World, this really comes down to utilizing and placing inferno traps properly, having a plan to do that, using haste pots to get to the right place at the right time and get there ahead of competitors, utilizing siege weapons properly and not overcommitting when placing them, and using mortars to take out points, using cannons to take down the siege weapons of enemies, and also making sure that you have people who've stocked up on ammo so you're not placing your siege weapons down and just having them be useless. We'll go through some of these cheat codes as time goes on, and of course in the coming film breakdown. The battle we're going to be looking at today is Trinity retaking Everfall during the closed beta. Their Shotcaller is Asuna, and he calls a base offense here that's very fundamentally sound, and their execution of this strategy is really what sets them apart. It's executed very well at a really high level, and possibly one of the best I've seen so far leading up to release. Some key personnel: Damone Kim, very well-known personality in the community. He's their governor. And then another really popular content creator, Sapphire, is the leader of their elite team, which consists of groups 1 and 5 in this particular battle. The defending company in this war is Lasting Resilience. Unfortunately, I couldn't find out too much information about them. If you're part of Lasting Resilience, if you have footage of your side of this battle, would love to see it. If you happen to know them, would love to also just get the information so I can fill it in here. But they also put up a pretty good fight here. Unfortunately, just got overwhelmed by a very well-called, fundamentally sound group. So this is the Everfall battle map, and just as an overview, there are these 3 points that you have to capture, A, B, and C, before you can start attacking the gates, of which there are 5, the 3 ones in the front, here, here, and here. And then 2 sort of backdoor gates, here and here, which are literally backdoor gates, but they are also smaller, so they are tighter choke points as well. The defenders have cannon emplacements or siege weapon emplacements here, here, and here. And generally, these are what you want to be targeting earlier on as an attacker in order to reduce the ability of the defenders to kind of take you out with these AoE weapons, and particularly anti-personnel weapons. And so one good thing to do before you kind of attack a settlement is scout out the settlement. and get an understanding for what exactly is emplaced here on these battlements. And you know, I think in this battle particularly, these siege cannons on the southeast side, these three are repeaters. And then the three here on the north side are cannons. There is a bit of a difference between the cannons available to defenders and the cannons available to attackers. Attacking cannons have bonuses on hitting both other siege weapons and structures, whereas cannons for defenders are actually explosive cannons and are more so used for CC against personnel. So one thing you also want to scout out when you are taking a look at the landscape and effectively planning out your strategy is where to place your cannons. So Trinity decides to kind of come out and place some cannons here. And these are what they're effectively going to be using as siege weapons kind of behind a defensive wall that they put up. And these cannons are also what they end up using to take out some of these emplaced siege weapons on the defending side. They try to come up to this mountainous region here, this hilly part, and kind of make put up some siege weapons here, but they're not initially successful just because the enemy does get up on that hill first. But towards the end of the battle, I do think they finally get some weapons up there. And they also think about putting some cannons, I believe, over here by the lake, just to kind of get after those cannons on the north gate. One thing to kind of notice about how Trinity opens this battle is that they do first come out and make a push onto B, but it's not actually a true push. They're not trying to capture B at the beginning. They effectively create a false front here, and Asuna has them create a defensive wall. So this false front goes up, spreads out here, and they're not trying to capture the point. They're just biding time for their siege weapons to take out, you know, these repeaters here, and also this cannon, I believe. These two cannons over here, and you'll see that in a bit.
Against everybody, game faces. Let's go.
Stay away from the gate. There you go. Nice.
Shields, get up in the front if you have a shield. I want us to form up in the front here, make a defensive line, start moving up.
One thing I want to quickly note here is that this shield wall strategy is really effective, but it did get nerfed because shield walls no longer block abilities. They only block projectiles from basic attacks now, but it is still very useful.
Big heals down on us right now. Start setting up those siege equipments. Mages, start poking at them. You don't need to wait for my call for damage. If you have an axe or a hammer, disrupt them when they come into us. Shields, you need to stay in a shield formation. How are the cannons coming down?
Can't get them. They're on the hill.
You'll notice here that Asuna keeps stressing his army to stay spaced out, not push up too far, and maintain that false front, and keep whittling down those siege weapons.
Focus on that right cannon. Muskets stay spread out. Muskets stay spread out.
Notice here when Damone turns around that there are basically no enemies in their back line. they've done an incredibly good job of keeping basically most of the enemies that could damage their mages, their healers, in front of them pretty much this entire time.
We're getting low. Left repeater's almost down. You guys need to start focusing that right cannon that in the middle. That big right cannon there. There's 2 right cannons. Just keep big heals up. Let's keep big heals up. Tanks spread out on the road a little bit more. You're clumping up in the middle of the road too much. Stay spread out on the road. Get in a line formation. A line formation. There you go. There you go. Cannons at half.
Reload.
Lance and Z-Man, if you have the reloads, you need to reload the cannons for us. It's at 25%. We're doing really well here. Everybody stay up and stay spread out.
Attacking the siege weapon.
Use your abilities and push them back if they run into you. Use your sword abilities and push them back. They're pushing into us. Start fighting them off. Start fighting them off. DPS, you need to look at our tank line right now. Look at our tank line and kill them. Don't let them push into us. Is that cannon down? Cannon is down. Can you hit that right cannon? The one to the right of where you were just shooting. Do we have more ammo or no? You need to tell me now.
Cannons are down.
Okay. Tanks, start splitting. Start splitting to the side of the road. Start splitting to the side of the road. DPS, get behind the tanks. Mages, get behind the tanks. We're gonna go in 3 seconds. In 2 seconds. In 1 second. Engage now. Engage now. Follow your melees in. Follow your melees in and get onto the B flag.
Now, most people here would think that Trinity is actually engaging here onto the B flag, but that's actually not what's happening here at all. And what Austin is effectively doing is taking that false front that they had earlier, which was just buying time to whittle down those cannons and those repeaters that he kept stressing, to watch their health, take them down. And now that they've done that, they're actually transforming that false front here into a feint. And you'll notice that when he asked the tanks and the rest of the army to engage, he said, come over to the right side, right? And there's also a reason for that as well. Now, what Austin is effectively going to have his army do is act as partially a decoy, while he has an elite team led by Sethfir go from the army here near point B and break off and go here to point A. And what this is effectively doing is basically acting as a basic numbers concept. In a numbers concept, you're basically asking the defensive Shotcaller to decide how he wants to spread out his forces, right? And this really does just come down to the principle of knowing your personnel. Asuna knows that his team of teams 1 and 5 are led by Sethfir. They're an elite team, so it's very highly skilled players, and probably a mix of players that are balanced enough in order to take a point by themselves. And so he has relatively high confidence that should this be an even matchup of say 10 on 10, that his 10 personnel would win this matchup. And if you're Asuna, you want this matchup to happen that way, right? So you are effectively forcing the defensive Shotcaller to take a decision on either sending 10 people, maybe even less than 10 people, and giving up point A, or sending more than 10 people, in which case he's effectively weakening his defense here of point B. And this allows Asuna to either get a tactical advantage in taking point A with the elite team and using smaller numbers that are just better quality players, or getting a numbers advantage at point B because the defense is forced to send more people to point A than they really should be. Now, Another thing you can do here, while it doesn't necessarily happen, is that you could turn this into sort of an influence concept because of this feint. And what that essentially would be is, now that you've sent a small team to A, you would then break off another team from here, send them around to C, and force the army to fight effectively on 3 fronts. You know, this is probably more effective if you've been scouted. You know, say Lasting Resilience had scouted Asana's prior battles, and they kind of know that, you know, doing a numbers concept to A is sort of his go-to move. And if you've self-scouted yourself enough, then you know that, you know, they might come back and know that they need to send, say, their own elite team to A. Then what you would do is possibly send Seth Fear as a feint with maybe not the same makeup of players, and send, you know, a secondary elite team to C, and effectively, you know, further spread out this kind of numbers advantage. One thing to also note here is that Asana is going to ask the army to put down inferno traps around point B, you know, have Seth Fear's team use haste pots. And again, these are just the cheat codes that are within the game, really just part of the game, that are inherently just, you know, tactical advantages to use, and everybody should be doing them. But, you know, people forget, you know, maybe you're just not experienced enough to know that you should be doing this. But remember to do that either to give yourself an advantage in terms of defending the point on a push, or, you know, if you are pulling out and, you know, acting as a smaller push onto another point, use those haste pots to get there before the defenders can, and give yourself a better chance of capturing that point. Another thing to note is the timing of this push. Notice how Asana starts the feint on B at the same time he knows that, you know, the cannons that they were focusing on A go down. You know, Mai kind of gives him the signal like, hey, the cannons are down, and then that's when that push onto B happens. And then, you know, once the enemy has time to register, oh my god, like, you know, this false front is becoming a real push here, or so they think, that's when he sends Seth Fear with his team out to A. And so they're really just checking off a lot of the fundamentals here in terms of timing, in terms of spacing. They're also, you know, pushing out the army on the feint onto B on the right side to effectively, you know, seal in defenders, and again, keep the defenders in front of them and stop them from maybe interrupting Seth Fear's team from getting to A. So those are all just, you know, these concepts that you've got to keep in mind when coming up with not just your battle plan, but also how to execute it effectively. One thing I also wanted to quickly touch on was just where Trinity chooses to put its Inferno traps. Now, when you look at the point here by B, what they effectively have is their tanks push up to around this part and start putting Inferno traps up there, and then they have their DPS put them on the flanks of the point. And what this essentially allows you to do is box in defenders that either spawn on the point, or to just keep defenders who are coming in from the outsides away from the point. And these Inferno traps do insane amounts of damage. So as these defenders are kind of swarming that point, it's just a great use of those battle tokens. And, you know, if you can kind of get this placement that they use, it's just great execution as well.
All your melees in and get onto the B flank. Keep big heals on us. Swords, switch back to your sword abilities and start getting in a shield wall formation. Seth, I want you to take your team right now, and I want you to split over to A. In 3 seconds.
Moving A.
Guys, if you're 1 and 5, start rotating to A right now.
1 and 5, rotate
area.
A. 1 and 5, go now. Haste pot in the back.
Keep big damage on the flags. Put your fire traps down if you're on the flag and around the flag. Don't forget your fire
Should
traps.
be on A point soon. Intercept anybody
Don't
that
forget your fire traps.
Get on
Stay
flag
on the
point.
flag.
Get on
Tanks,
flag
do
point
not
on A.
move past the flag. Do not move past it yet. Just stay on the flag. There's a lot of melees here. Focus your damage. Mages stay spread out on the flanks. Do not stand directly behind the flag. Do not stand directly behind the flag.
Kill guy on A. Two more coming up. Tanks push up on A. Tanks push up on A. Get on Fear the C.
Mages, move to the left and the right, please. Left and the right. Do not stand in the middle. Get on the flanks.
Get on this level 42 in the middle. Sam, sorry. Sam, sorry.
Keep big heals on us. Keep big heals on us. Use your potions.
We got this here. Executes on the braidest.
We need big damage on the 1B.
I need you guys to hit more damage on the B flag.
We got
More
about
damage
10,
on the B
15
flag.
over here. We're winning A. We got A. We got A.
Alright, get off of A and regroup
Okay.
with us.
Kill these guys right now while healing
If
towards
you
the
have a
middle.
shield, put your shield up and block in the front. Block in the front.
So I think
We are winning B.
Yeah.
So by taking A with Sethvir's team and using the numbers concept, they've effectively not only taken out some opponents at A, but now have also created themselves an advantage at B. And now they're about to press that advantage. So this is just one example of good fundamentals create a virtuous cycle.
5, peel back, down the road, down the road.
May just look to the road so that we can heal for our guys. I need big heals on the flag right now. I need big heals on the flag. Tanks
coming
move
with
back.
me. Follow me
Move
on.
back into the center of the flag. Do not push past. Stay spread out. Stay spread out. Use your shield.
1 and
Give
5
your buff.
into the back line. We're doing a dive right now on their healers. Go, right now. Into their back line.
Axes and
Inferno
hammers, I
trap.
want you to push up. Axes
Inferno
and
trap.
hammers, I want you to push up. Hit the set screw. Hit the set screw. Push up right now. Push up right now.
Go deep. We don't care if you die. 1 and 5. Straight in the back line.
Notice how they send Sethvir's team here into the back line. This is just not only just being cognizant of the personnel, they're sending an elite team to take out the healers in the back line, but also understanding, you know, that they can keep the healers occupied and then free up the tanks to take out whoever's jumping the point.
Come back to the
Okay, 1 and
crossroads.
5. Peel back. If you die, that's okay. Bye.
Crossroads now. Crossroads now. Be fast.
One thing to watch as Trinity makes its way over to C is that they make sure to keep their tanks on the right side, closer to the defenders, and the mages and squishier DPS over to the left side, so that they effectively have a defensive wall in case they get jumped on the way there.
Yeah, if you have haste pot, use it now and start rotating up there. They're going
1
to
and
be
5
there
spawn
ahead of
board
us.
camp.
We're going to do the same exact thing we just did. Do not push up too far yet. Do not push up too far. Just wait for everybody. Shields in the front. Our main goal is to get our cannons going. Our main goal is to get our cannons going. We don't need to take the flag yet. We have 23 minutes. We're doing amazing right now.
2 haste pots. The rest Inferno traps. Group 1 and 5. Make sure you have it.
Yep.
Back up so you can let
If
me
you
out.
die, I have 300 tokens. If you die, buy your Inferno traps. That's 5 Inferno traps. That's big damage. Pop your last stand. Pop your defensive formation. Do not push up too far. Stay spread out. Stay spread out. How's our cannons looking? Do we have cannons on C
Good.
yet? Fire launchers, just focus on hitting them on their flag. Just start whittling them down if you have a fire launcher.
One thing to note here is how they've only used 4 of 10 of their siege weapons, and if you keep watching back through the entire battle, they don't use too many of their siege weapons at any given time. You just see way too many times where, you know, a company is employing 10 siege weapons and they just can't put siege weapons at a new emplacement or to take a new point just because, you know, they've already placed them all down and are just overcommitted.
He'll be disrupting them.
1 and 5 are waiting on hillside. To the right of C.
If you see that they're not hitting you, swing at them. Use your light attacks. Do not push up yet. Ben Gaming, you're too far ahead. Soul Eater, you're too far ahead. Just stand here. We're protecting our cannons. Let's move up about 3 feet. Just get in front of the cannons. Get in front of the cannons. Switch to your axes if you have it. Start clumping them up for damage. Start clumping them up for damage. Don't move it on the flag. Just start clumping them up for damage. Switch back to your shields and start tanking again. Put your shields up, holding them.
I think we can
Really
push
good
1 and
heals.
5 here. Asuna.
I wanna get that cannon down. I wanna get that
Okay,
cannon
okay,
down.
waiting on cannon.
Again, watch that timing, just waiting for that cannon to come down before committing.
1 and 5. There's poking. That's going in yet.
How are we doing on cannons? I see one is down. Or do we have any cannons left?
Gravity well in the middle.
Okay. Split on the sides in 3 seconds. It's to the left or the right, it doesn't matter which side, in 3 seconds. In 2 seconds. In 1 second, everybody on the side. Melees, we're going in 3, in
Okay,
2,
1 and 5. Get ready to
in
push out
1.
right side.
Now we're going hard
Haste
onto the
pot.
flag
1
now.
and
Hard
5
onto
into
the
the
flag
back.
now.
Inferno traps behind them. Inferno traps behind them.
If you're dead and you're respawning, put Inferno traps down on
Bob
them.
in the back.
Mages
Bob
stay on
in
the
back.
left and the right. Mages stay on the flank. Tanks into the flag. Tanks into the flag.
We just killed Michael.
This pincer movement push is just a great way to initiate a jump onto the point. Again, just because you're able to keep your tanks at the front and kind of encircle the point, pushing defenders into the point and creating a wall around any spawns that happen, and then also keeping your mages on the flanks, either on the left, right, or in the back, and keeping them safe and allowing them to continue putting down that damage.
Back towards the gate. 1 and 5. Go.
So push into
Get on
push into
Brad.
push into
No. Stay spread out. Stay spread out for now. Stay spread out for now. Don't push onto it yet.
Corey.
Watch out for the
Corey.
respawns. Watch out for the respawns. They're respawning. Don't
Okay.
get clumped up right now. Don't get clumped up right now. Stay wary of the respawns. Get your fire traps down on the sides.
Push up again. Healers in the back. 1 and 5. 1 and 5. 1
I
and
want us
5
to
on
stack
Brad in
onto
the
the
back.
flag in 5 seconds. In 5 seconds. In 4, in 3, in 2, in 1. We're onto the flag now. Shields in the front. Shields in the front. Put your defensive walls up. Defensive walls up. Block for our mages. Amazing. Push through now. Push through now. Push through now. Get to a gate. Get to a gate. Get to a gate. Buy your barrels from the flag. Interact with it with E. Buy powder kegs and fire traps.
This is just another one of those cheat codes in terms of Asano pushing his army to use that flag to buy powder kegs and fire traps. And again, powder kegs, great way to take down a gate. And just way too many times you see people trying to take down a gate through basic attacks and just not taking advantage of those items.
Heals on a group. Stay spread out. Use your potions. Use your food. Your defenses. Alright, once you have your dynamite barrels, get up to the gate and start putting down the dynamite barrels. 1 and 5, do you have dynamite barrels for the back?
We do. We can go around to see if you want, or do you want us to go back
I
left?
want you to hit the back flank.
Remember those 2 small back gates that we talked about, and notice here how Asano is sending that elite team to go there. Again, just creating a numbers concept to where if they do happen to break through on the bank flank, they do have the best players there to really draw more defenders back to that choke point and then help out the front in terms of allowing the main army to get inside.
Nice.
Push past the door, bro.
Run
Push
through
past
it,
the door.
run through it, run through it. Keep spamming
There we go. Back into the
move.
back line. Back into the back line.
Run through the door and spread out inside. Run through the door and
One
spread out
barrel.
inside.
Need a barrel right here. 1 and 5 is
Run
coming from the
through
back
it.
flank soon.
Yep. Get in here and spread out. Get in here and
Okay.
spread out. Get in here and spread out. Don't get
Okay,
stuck
we're
in the
ready to
door.
go soon as soon as ready to go soon.
Okay, okay.
1 and 5 are flanking now. 1 and 5 are flanking now. Through the gates, in the back. Let's get on the
You
healers
guys
in the
need to
back.
spread out.
Healers in the
You
back.
guys need to spread out.
1 and 5 going
Spread
hard.
out. Start hugging the walls of the fortifications.
Yeah.
We're getting hit by all the fire staffs here in the middle.
If you're
Spread into the
respawning,
walls.
fire
Spread
traps.
into
If
the
you're
walls.
respawning, fire traps.
Open.
1 and 5, we're flanking behind real hard right now. We're killing a lot of them.
Alright, melee train, I want you to get on the right side. Get on the right side towards the front wall and follow me in. Follow me in onto the hard point. Follow me in onto the hard point. We have 4 people on the hard point
1 and
already. Get
5
in here.
up on the stairs. We're killing ranged
Push
people.
past the
Get on
melee.
the real
Push
Moloch.
past the melee into the hard point.
Everybody into the hard point. If you're here, get into the hard point. We have a lot of people to our left. Look to our left on the original door. Look onto the left door. Big damage onto the where they are.
1 and
There's
5 more
about
on
10
the
of them here.
stairs.
Don't let them kill our people here. Don't let them kill our people here. Big damage on me. I'm in here. I'm in here. Stand on the flag and do damage to them. Tanks, we're gonna rotate back to the hard point. It's at 90%. Everybody onto the hard point now.
Okay,
Onto the
everybody
hard
converge.
point
1
now.
and 5 on hard point.
Let's go!
Whoa!
So I hope y'all enjoyed watching that footage. I know I did the first time I saw it. It's one of the fastest offensive wins I've ever seen, and to be honest, again, it's really not the defender's fault. Asano's a fantastic shot caller here, and the strategy that they do use, they employ it to near perfection. Again, they start off by kind of jumping into that false front, not really committing to anything, taking their time in terms of whittling down the siege equipment and finding the right opportunity to really jump and make that first maneuver. And the entire time, again, they're spacing properly. They're making sure that they're not clumping up too much, They're using cheat codes, like using siege weapons properly, putting them in the right place, and eventually, you know, employing those inferno traps, using the haste pots when Seth Fear's team moves over to take point A, and eventually when they kind of move over to point C. And another thing, when they're trying to move over to point A, again, just knowing your personnel in terms of sending the right people to really induce the defensive shot caller to commit enough people to give you that numbers advantage, either in the point you're trying to push into or into that second breakoff point. When they finally get up to those gates, again, they go for those powder kegs. They're just not hammering onto them using basic attacks or, you know, using their abilities. They're understanding that, you know, there's a faster way to do this and more effective way to do it. And then finally, they finish up by using that flank into the back door with, again, the same team of teams 1 and 5, and circle the point and get that victory. So I really hope y'all enjoyed the video. I thought New World was just a perfect game for this type of analysis. There's just so much strategy involved, coordination involved, and again, just great teamwork. You know, I would love to go through more tape. I think we're going to jump into kind of a defensive fundamentals video for the next one, but if there's a particular battle that you want to talk through or you want me to cover, you know, drop it in the comments below. Reach out to me. I'll drop my Discord into the description below. You know, and thanks for watching, y'all. Again, shout out to Amazon Game Studios for creating the creator program, for giving us these assets, allowing us to work with these transitions, the soundtrack, and of course, shout out to all the other creators and streamers out there who are again putting out this amazing content, and of course, giving us these battles. And shout out to players like y'all who are gonna make this community pretty awesome, and really looking forward to launch soon. So thanks y'all, and see y'all next time.